Good afternoon and welcome to the Replimat, an increasingly frequent Deep Space Nine podcast, or chat, if you like, featuring two writers and interesting people. Myself, Tim, who is watching all this for the first time, and my colleague.
Me, Andy, who's interested, apparently.
Is interesting, yes, and a seasoned fan. Yes.
Yes.
And this afternoon,
Very seasoned.
he's a fan in season. Yes. Watch out! You've been warned. You heard it. You heard it here first. And this afternoon, we've been watching, and we're about to discuss season 2, episode 1, "The Homecoming," which was directed by Winrick Colby, with a story by Jerry Taylor and Ira Stephen Bear, and a screenplay by Ira Stephen Bear. So that is the episode for this afternoon. But to begin with, Andy.
Hello. Hi.
How are you?
I am okay, considering.
Good.
Good. As you well know, and
as I well know,
may not well know, depending on whether you follow me on various places, because I'm not on Twitter, X anymore.
Right.
So fed with it. Anyway, yeah. It turns out, as I found out, probably about a week and a half ago, I discovered I've got torn cartilage in my knee. You may recall on a few of these videos, I've gone like, "Oh, my knee's a bit sore. It's all this bike riding, blah blah blah." Turns out, yes, it was torn cartilage. So yeah, slightly sore. So now I'm off work currently, and I will be for another week and a half at least. Hopefully less, because I'm walking around more easily than I was a week ago. So fingers crossed. So yes, that's fun. So that's me basically just stuck indoors, really. I mean, yesterday I actually went out. A mate of mine came over, drove to his house, spent some time in his den, just hanging out, drinking tea, listening to music, So that was quite nice just to have a different set of walls to look at, I mean,
yeah, I bet.
A bit of fresh air on the way there and back, so that's quite nice. And then a friend pop over, so it's like, it's not awful, but it's a bit tedious. On the plus/negative, depending on how you look at it side, it does mean I've watched quite a lot of films since we last spoke.
Right.
Lots of fun films, not necessarily for the squeamish though. I've been watching stuff like Cocaine Bear, which is a new one. You may have heard of it. It's apparently based on a true story of this drug cartel who chucked all their cocaine out of the plane for a drop. Winds blow, it lands everywhere where it's not supposed to, and including like one of these state parks in the States. And the coke bear got hold of it.
Okay, I have heard of it, but only because there's all these memes around on social media about it a while back.
All I can say is, honestly, I highly recommend it. I mean, it's a bit gory, but not in a slasher horror kind of way. It's really funny. Not
in a coked up bear kind of way,
high comedy, just in a situational sort of comedy kind of vibe. It's
okay.
I've watched it twice in the past week, and I don't do that. So I had a friend over last night, so I was like, "Oh, let's watch this again," because I really enjoyed this the other day. So let's do it again, and I was still laughing at it. I'm like, "This is just." I don't want to say a feel-good movie, but it kind of is. But not for kids. It's a good movie.
No, I can imagine.
If you don't mind a bit of cocaine sniffing and dismemberment, then you'll find this a really surprisingly enjoyable
the film for you.
Yeah. Beyond that,
cool.
I watch stuff like The Terrifier, which you may have heard of. It's Terrifier 1 and 2, which are...
Right. No, I've not heard of either of those, I'm afraid.
So one's more recent, the other one's a few years ago. It's basically about this clown who basically massacres people. It's kind of interesting because it all seems quite real, the first one, and then towards the end when he suddenly resurrects very oddly, even though he's got shot in the head. And then it all goes quite bizarre and supernatural and weird in the second one, but still really entertaining. But definitely not for the squeamish. It's very gory. He's literally torturing people, like literally chopping arms off and all sorts of stuff, and they're still alive. It's very weird.
So not one that you watch while you're having your tea.
If you're of that disposition, no. Personally, it didn't bother me. I was eating food on the second one, but I've never been that kind of guy anyway. But yeah, so I'm watching lots of stuff. I watched and really enjoyed the first season of Chucky, which of course is the Child's Play TV show set after the seventh Chucky film. And that's exactly what you expect the Chucky film to be. It's irreverent, it's silly, it's dark, it's, and obviously since we don't mind swearing on this because it's not for kids, they do the previously on bit in the ongoing shows these days. And one part, Chucky, or Brad Dourif doing voice, done the previously on bit, and he's like, previously on fucking Chucky. And I'm like, yes.
Okay.
It's just a very funny, again, not for the younger audience at all, but very funny. And I've also finally got around to start watching Star Trek Prodigy, which the viewers will almost certainly know of. You may not. It was a Nickelodeon co-production with CBS Studios. As it goes on, it turns out it's kind of a sequel to Star Trek Voyager. That's set like a few decades later. Like initially, it's got a hologram of Janeway, but as the series progressed, we learned that Chakotay, who's first officer on DS9, he's got missing on Voyager. And I've heard it's supposed to be brilliant, and I'm like, it's still not out over here on domestic media anyway. So I thought, sorry, I'm just going to get the region 3 version of it. Slightly more expensive, but it's also it's being pulled from Paramount Plus, which was a big hoo-ha.
I remember you saying about that a few weeks back.
You may remember I also said a few weeks ago, I'd almost guarantee it's not been cancelled. It's just the deal probably fell through with Nickelodeon, and due to the agreement of licensing, they had to pull it from Paramount temporarily. That's my feeling on it. Business-wise, that makes sense to me. That they've got to put it for so long in between, until this license has died off, some such nonsense. That's how I feel. Which seems to be bearing out because they did a massive Star Trek weekend thingy recently, convention, and they showed a trailer for the season 2, little clip of season 2, which hasn't been shown yet, which is still finishing off. And the producer didn't explicitly say it, but he did say essentially it isn't finished yet. It's not over yet. It will be back. That they're just obviously working out a certain deal. Which I'm like, well, yeah, obviously they're not going to invest this much money in the show and just pull it. It's ridiculous. Of course they're not going to do that. It's business, isn't it? And we know licensing can be quite specific and often a pain in the ass. And if there's a certain deal out of Nickelodeon that says once the license was over, there had to be a period of grace, as it were, which usually happens. It's the same thing that Marvel did when Netflix, when they finally lost the license with Marvel, the Daredevil and all the other Netflix shows disappeared for some time. Everybody's all like, oh, we're never going to see them again. And now they're all on Disney. But there was a period in between where the licensing meant they had to just stop for a little while. And I think this is a situation, same situation, basically. But I got bored waiting. So But yeah, it's definitely it's a kids show, but it's shockingly well layered for a kids show.
Okay,
there's a lot more to it for, I suppose, a family audience, even though it's Nickelodeon.
Cool.
But yeah, I've done the first 5 episodes, I guess, so that's like the first quarter of the first season.
Right.
Because it's 20 episodes. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think I can see why it's been well received. So that's what I've been doing. In terms of reading, for those interested, I've finished that V book finally.
Oh right, yes.
Because as I've mentioned, I tend to be reading more than one book on the go, just to keep variety occasionally when you get bored of the story. And I'm back on Dune again. I'm on to book 3, which is sort of first book, but there's 3 books within one. That's part 1, part 2, part 3. And it's still very slow. It's still, I think. I mean, kudos to Frank Herbert for his world building, but I think he kind of too well built. So it's very dense in a good way, but it makes for a very slow reading process for me anyway.
Yeah.
So many details, so many things to remember, so many not normal names, to try to keep in your head. But I'm still going to stick with it, and I'm looking forward to the next books in the series because they are a lot shorter.
Cool.
That's because the first one produced
good stuff.
Next one's big, so that's been me for the last 2 weeks. Yes, because I've had nothing else to do. So normally, as you know, I don't watch as much during weeks. I don't have the time. But boy, have I got the time now.
Yes.
So, Tim, what have you been doing the last 2 weeks then?
Oh, yeah.
You've been watching.
So I have actually managed to watch some more Cracker.
Cracking.
Since we last spoke, because when we last spoke 2 weeks ago, I hadn't really.
Yeah,
I'd just been focusing on the writing,
That's right.
and I kind of cast aside all other distractions. To a certain extent, I've kind of continued that. I've watched. We're now. I think we're almost at the end of season 3 of Cracker, so we've probably only got about another 4 episodes to go for the whole series, 4 stories rather to go for the whole series.
All right,
and that's continuing to be incredibly well done, well made, well written.
There's somebody else was watching that recently. They've also said it's for the first time, and they're saying it's an outstanding. I can't remember.
It is. And I have watched a little bit more Robin and Sherwood, although not a great deal. And I'm unfortunately, Vicar, I'm still no further through reading Stephen Gallagher's Warrior's Gate, or revamped Warrior's Gate Target novelisation.
I forgot to ask you last information. Have you read any of his non-Doctor?
Oh, sorry, I didn't catch that.
Have you read any of Gallagher's non-Doctor Who books?
No, I haven't. I've just previously all I've read is the 2 that he novelised as John Lydecker, so the original Warrior's Gate and then Terminus, but I've not read any of his non-Who stuff.
Like these.
I've got Chimera.
Okay, that was
actually because I remember seeing it on TV years ago. Yes. So I got the book of that, but I haven't read it yet.
He's very good. I haven't read many of his novels. This might happen a couple of times. Yeah, really enjoyable. I think you'd like stuff. I suppose it depends what you like. It's totally not Doctor Who. Very different to his Doctor Who works.
Yeah.
And back in the 90s and early 2000s, he was one of my favourite British authors for quite a while. So, but I would recommend you check it out. It might be more fun for you than Warrior's Gate.
Yeah, maybe. I'll certainly check it out sometime. I think what happens because obviously I've been focusing again on the writing. I'm progressing well, not quite as fast as I'd like to, but I'm progressing well with the with the unit novel. So I'm about 3/4 of the way through now. So that's a good place to be. But when I go back to Warrior's Gate, I'm going to start again because I hadn't got that far into it, and it would be pointless picking it up from where I've stopped, even though I know the story, very well anyway, and know it and love it. But so yeah, slightly dull, I'm afraid, at this end in terms of news for listeners.
No accidents.
No accidents. No accidents. No emergencies. No. So just me and everything that's going on around me. So rather dull. Sorry. That's
that is the way life. Bumble cookies sometimes.
Yes.
So shall we go into this episode?
Indeed. Okay. I've just realised when I gathered all of the info about the episode at the beginning, I didn't mention when it was first broadcast.
I imagine about 30 years ago, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we were almost exactly 30 years ahead previously, but would there have been a gap
Of course,
here
then now it's going
between
to be, I'm
season
guessing,
1 and season 2?
October, late September, maybe.
Let's see if we can find out.
Let's see.
Fact checkers.
It would have been, yeah. Well, the episode was filmed in July, apparently.
Okay.
So I'm guessing it would have come out around
September 26th, 1993 in the US.
So we're not that far off.
No.
30 years, obviously.
So, yeah.
Well, I say we might catch up. We might not catch up.
We might not.
Actually,
don't make rash promises.
We definitely won't, because if we actually do it once a week, then we're obviously going to be the same distance from it. So we're not. Hopefully, we're not going to get further away from it in terms of the time of the year. But that could happen.
It could. Who knows?
Eventually, we'll catch up. Anyway, Tim.
Yes.
Season 2. What do you think? Obviously, as the person who's coming into this very cold, and I deliberately didn't tell you that this was, of course, for viewers watching who may know, this is, of course, the first of a multi-part story. I made sure not to tell Tim this. I wanted to. No, I want to see how long it takes for different. Hang on.
Yeah, I enjoy going into these things cold, without any foreknowledge and preconceptions and stuff.
I try to keep it that
way. I really enjoyed this episode again.
You did get very involved.
I did.
To the point where you nearly fell asleep watching it. That's how much
that happens now and again. I just I didn't miss anything. And I was really enjoying it. So, but the thing that struck me the most, actually, right from the start, is how much more relaxed and confident and comfortable the characters felt, that the show felt, probably the actors were. There was a quite a noticeable step change, I think, in that respect, from the end of the first series to this. There was, I think you mentioned while we were watching, there obviously was a passage of time between but yeah, there's an ease and a comfort. The actors looked like they were much more at home with the character in their skin this time. There's just certain things. There being a kind of a fluidity, a more natural, almost just a more natural body language to the performances. I just got the feeling that everyone was much more comfortable with the whole Deep Space Nine package. So comfortable in with who they were, what they were doing within the set or sets, within that filming environment. It just it felt much more confident and comfortable.
Well, that does scan, because I was looking through the companion before we started watching it, and the executive producers were all saying the same thing, that we started, the lessons we learned in season 1 from a production point of view, and they said that we were more comfortable in what we were doing, like writing and whatnot, and more comfortable with the characters because we knew them, and of course we knew the actors now, so we were able to tailor it a bit better. Where of course season 1 is all very learning. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I think this first few scenes, we don't see much of Bashir, but we see quite a bit of everybody else, and they're all very chill in their roles.
Yeah.
Obviously, Oda's he's improved his how to appear human, or in the real world, a new face mask.
Yes.
which looks a lot smoother, slightly more hair, which is nice. But yeah, everybody, as you say, they do seem so much more comfortable. You can see, for instance, when we get Dax's first proper scene with Cisco, which made you laugh. You can see she's definitely got more comfortable in the role. She's certainly worked out who she's playing. I think you can see that Terry Fell's like, I get who Dax is now. But yeah, I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. Everybody nailed it. Everybody nailed it, for sure. Oop, have I gone quiet?
Oh, sorry.
Can you not hear me?
Sorry, you've gone very, very quiet at my end, so I couldn't hear you.
Okay,
I've
maybe
just
I
turned the
moved too
volume
far.
right up to see if that was a problem, but I've got you up to maximum at my end, and I'm still really struggling to hear you.
Okay, you can hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Oh, maybe I just moved too far from the microphone. I'll just
Ah,
bring it with me. So yes, what I was saying, right?
yeah.
Here on top of
Perfect.
the pops. Sorry. But yeah, I was basically agreeing. I'm saying that, like, I agree. It's all very chill and everybody's,
Mm.
yeah, definitely.
As for the story,
Yes.
um, again, I thought this is a confident
Hmm.
start, because it's them not shying away from the 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 darker side, the kind of war crimes
Hmm.
aspect of the kind of the Kardashian occupation of Bejor, and allowing Major Kira to I suppose pretty much go off and do what she used to do before.
Hmm.
So that
Stick it
was
to them.
and it was just some wonderful, wonderful moments with the characters where we obviously had that conversations with most of them already, and but you're, as the audience, you're just following uh, Cisco, and
Yeah,
so
well, like I just said this bit, but I obviously didn't hear this bit where I said the whole Dax scene with Cisco, her first proper scene, and
yes,
how it made you chuckle. It's like, what do you think I
that
should
was
do? I think you should give Kira the runabout.
yeah, and
Huh?
that was just
And of
that
course,
was that
O'Brien
was
knew when everybody else knew, and
yeah.
who did anybody doesn't know? Quark don't know. Okay, well, as far as Quark's aware, and yeah, I mean, that kind of humor wasn't necessarily absent from season one, but it didn't feel as natural in season one as it did there. I
No,
think, you
that
know,
was incredibly
yeah.
incredibly well done, um, and yeah, yeah, just some very very funny moments, all perfectly within character, within the moment as well. It wasn't that the situation or the or anything was forced to
Mm.
create that those moments of humor. It was all, yeah, it was all done very organically and very very naturally. So that was,
So,
yeah, that was great.
what do you think of the story? In so much as you know the story yet, because as it turns out, this is only the first part of a story.
Yeah, so we've got I suppose there's a not a predictability as such, but there was there the whole thing about the resistance hero being uh,
Leonist.
yeah,
Yeah.
being sort of reluctant, um, and potentially kind of caught in the right place at the right time,
Mm.
but having had being attributed with things sort of beyond his ability, as it were, beyond his
People have basically created this story around him when,
yeah,
of course, reality, as he tells towards the end of the episode, is quite different. It's just purely accidental. But of
yeah,
course, the story around him built into this great mythos and made him this hero of the resistance when really that's not who he is ever wanted to be.
yeah,
I like that aspect of this part of the story. Is I say, yeah, predictable to a point, but it did remind me of that early season one episode, past prologue, when of course the other Resistance hero, Tanner Lost, turned up. And of course, he turned out he was a bit of a dodgy guy because he was doing that deal with the Klingons and that, you remember. So when I'm watching this one, I'm thinking, for a new watcher, you may possibly thinking, oh, hang on, here we go again. Is this going to be another bloody Bajoran who's still got a real grr on? But no, quite the reverse, actually. He's more like, I'm not interested. I just want to, or as he put it, just go, I'm done. I think that's enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely fair. But he's obviously been forced into this role that, even at the end, he clearly doesn't want it. You know, this Navok role that he's been given, he definitely does not want that.
No, but I like the fact that he's accepted that obviously he does need to step up to the mark to a certain extent, and and he's kind of got no way of avoiding that without I suppose without a lot of collateral damage to the Bajoran people and that whole man versus myth situation. I don't trust the politician guy at all.
Oh, well, that's an interesting point that you raised there. Not trusting him because clearly I can see why, because he seems a little bit dodgy. But I wonder if it's because he's played by Frank Langella, who does have a habit of playing very darker, dodgier people.
Oh,
do you know who Frank Langella is? Yeah, the actor who played him.
I recognise the name.
Yeah, he's done lots of darker types. I believe he's played Dracula and stuff like that.
Okay.
He's one of those actors, which I wonder if that's why you're a little wary of him, because in your head you're like, I recognize him from these kind of roles that suggest that maybe he. But I don't know if you did notice that he's actually got no credit on this in this episode at all.
No, I didn't notice
that. Now that's because, which he's a fairly big name at this point in terms of Hollywood. And apparently, according to the companion book, but they often say this, so I wonder if it's true. He didn't want any credit for it because he was doing this because his kids love Star Trek. So he wasn't doing it for the notoriety or for the attention or the money as such. Obviously, he got paid, but he was doing it just because it'd be a kick for his kids to have their dad in Star Trek.
But surely it's more of a kick for them to also see his name. The cynic in me always thinks that if a character isn't credited for an episode, or if an actor isn't credited for an episode, then that character has something to hide, and the next time they appear, they're actually going to turn out to be someone else, or some revelation like that. So I don't know. That I wasn't thinking that when we were watching, because I didn't realise that he wasn't that he wasn't credited. But I just, maybe it's a natural thing. Oh, politician turns up. Oh, they must be dodgy.
I kind of agree, actually. When I read that little bit in the companion book about how he did it for his kids, that's why I didn't want it. I'm like, is it really, or is it he just didn't want the, as it were, the IMDb credit associated with Star Trek?
Yeah, I think
even if you're doing it for your kid, as you say, but surely you'd want your name on it, even more so.
How old is he's quite an old bloke. How old must his kid be?
Obviously you got paid for it anyway, but it's a odd thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've heard this. I'm sure you've heard bloody actors being told saying, "Oh, I only do this. My kids love it. It's not really the sort of thing I normally do." Like with Supernatural, Mark Sheppard only originally apparently took the role of. No, tell a lie. Doctor Who, Mark Sheppard, he only took the role of whatever that secret agent dude's name is in Day of the Moon. Forget that character's name now. But apparently he only took that role because his kids love Doctor Who. Right. And of course then they hired his dad to play the older version of him. But I'm like, I don't know, man. I mean, if I had kids or nephews and nieces, for instance, they love something, and I was offered a job that I'm like, not really my bag, I don't think I'd do it just because I know my nephew or niece love it. I don't know. I just, again, the cynic in me as well is like, Yeah, I don't buy that. You did it for the money. Of course, you did it for the money.
My thinking is that they don't want it. They think it will dominate their CV or
I
their
think
profile going forward. So,
well, they're not
and
wrong.
you can see that with films where like A-list actors make minor cameos and stuff.
Yeah.
If it's got their name in the credits as well, it overbalances. It draws too much attention to themselves,
Oh, and you've
and
seen, I'm
it
sure
overbalances the film.
yeah, I'm sure you've seen like there's films that are repackaged later when an actor becomes a big name, who wasn't necessarily a big name at the time, becomes a big name, and they've got like their names on the box, and they have like a 5-minute role.
Yeah,
Like Little Shop of Horrors, not the musical. There was another version back in the early days of Jack Nicholson's career, for instance.
right.
I remember I fell for this. I bought it because Jack Nicholson. He was in it for, I don't know, 10 minutes, a very minor role. But of course,
Yeah,
he's a name. Let's pop his name on it. We're
exactly.
not lying. He is in this. Starring's a bit of a stretch, but he is in it.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember. Yes, yeah, of course
Yes.
that happened. Of course
Not
that
Jack Nicholson stars in. Jack Nicholson appears in.
Yeah, just put his name on the top of the box before the title, and of course people will be like, "Oh, I didn't know he did this."
Oh,
I
yeah,
watch.
Jack Nicholson
Where is he?
film.
Where is he? Where is he? Where? Oh, there. Oh, he's gone.
Oh, there he goes in the background.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was it. Literally, like I was watching an episode of Hot Only Fools last night because I'm still
Oh,
doing
yeah.
that. We're now more or less moving into the specials only time of the show, which is basically the second half of the show, really. And there's the episode where Rodney and Cassandra finally get married. I say finally, she's only been in it for like a season and a bit, so it's not like it took them that long.
Right.
It just felt like it was that long. And there's a scene in the pub, like there always is, and the characters are talking, and in the background, the characters sitting there at the end of the bar, just sort of like watching them. And you can sort of see he's listening to the conversation. And I'm watching it, and I talked to the guy I was with, and I said to him, I'm sure that's Michael Jaston. But he's not going to do a bit part like that. Surely, assume he's got some dialogue later in the episode if that's him, because it does look really a lot like him.
Yeah.
Nothing. And I'm like, was it actually him? Because I can't see why he would do that. This is like 80. Well, this has got to be late 80s, possibly 90s by now. Because, yeah, this is like just after season 4. So we're talking at least 1990, because they've had a few specials too. So I'm like,
But then something like Only Fools probably by then was already
very popular.
starting to attract the sort of attention where people may have said, "Look, I love the show. Can I just appear?"
Yeah, I suppose.
The way that apparently there's loads of famous people who've appeared as stormtroopers in some Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
films.
yeah, you hear that all the time. It's a bizarre thing, isn't it? I'm doing this for the fans. Yeah,
So,
really. I love this film. So what? In that case, if you're a big star at this point and you love this franchise, you want to be in it, you make yourself known. Surely you would then angle for an actual role that pays you well, because you want that on your CV. Not hi, I'm Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig, and I'm a stormtrooper. I actually have a few lines. You just don't know it's me unless you know it's me, and now you know it's me.
Yes,
And
which
yeah,
I suppose
I don't
goes
go
back
on
to
that.
the whole CV thing, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I don't want it appearing on my I don't want it appearing on my credits.
Now
I
see,
want it. I'm happy for it to go on my trivia, but not on my
now
list of.
this is like middle-aged cynicism, isn't it?
so fucking cynical.
Because a few years back we were like, "Oh, that's nice of them," but
Yeah.
here we are, we're like, "Yeah, I don't buy this, man.
Yeah.
I don't buy it at all." But anyway, so yes, this episode, right?
Yeah. The Homecoming.
Yeah,
Yeah. It does. It does feel like It does feel like a homecoming as well.
which is why I like the name. Yeah,
Yeah, it does. It just you stepping back in, and it's DS9 feels like a home. I know it's an operational space station. So, but
People
it feels
live
like
there.
home.
Yeah.
Sort of stepping back into it, you find that you're comfortable with it because everyone's comfortable at their end as well, and then of course you've got the actual homecoming of Lee, whatever his name is,
Lee Nallis.
Lee Nellis, right?
First name Nallis, family name Lee, because that's how Bajorans do it.
Yes.
See, that's why I suggested doing a week break between, a week off, because I think, I'm sure you've done this. You've done marathons of shows that you like, and you just go from one season to the next, and you lose something, I think, by doing that. You need that little pause to when you come back, it feels like, it's nice to be back, not just the same old.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's actually, for me, this is interesting because I think this is the first time ever that I've watched this episode, this particular story, this multi-part story, with a gap. Because when it came on video first time, it would have been the 2 episodes together, obviously on DVDs and various whatevers, and I don't think I've ever watched this whole story as a single separate part entity ever. So this is kind of like, so the next, but when we watch the next one, it says last time on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, it will actually feel like it was last time, and because you just skipped that because I'm like, I saw that a minute ago,
No,
so
but it will be. It's a whole week ago or whatever. And,
it's kind of like watching Doctor Who in that sense, Usually with classic Who stories anyway, back when it was on VHS in particular and on DVD, to be fair, usually you'd end up watching the whole story. You wouldn't watch one episode, then watch another one another few days later or whatever. At least I don't normally. But when I did that big rewatch that I finished I want to say a few months ago, but it doesn't feel like it probably was that long ago. That went on forever, or felt like forever. I deliberately didn't watch more than one episode on a day to try and get the sense of how it would have been back in the day, So it's
I'd watch if I was going to watch more than one episode in a day. Usually, I'd split it up so that I'd maybe watch like one episode over breakfast and one over lunch.
Right, so you spread it out through the day.
So you spread it out through the day that way. But it's and that it's when. And when people complain that I can't sit through, I can't get past episode 2 or episode 3 or whatever, you're like, for God's sake, they weren't made to be watched like that.
Well, it's like you see people.
You're not doing the story any favors at all.
No, it's like I remember when War Games came out very first time on VHS, and I remember watching that in pretty much one sitting. I think I might have taken I must have had a 5-minute gap or something in between because it was on 2 tapes. So of course there's 10 episodes. And in its fairness, though, it does rattle on really well for a 10-episode story.
Yeah, it does.
It's woefully repetitious, but again, all they were concerned is filling out an episode for next week. But like you say, just like this, it's not necessarily designed to be watched in one sit, and it's meant to be. So they may reiterate plot points because obviously they can't. Hello, Blue. You can't guarantee that whoever watched it this week would have been in to watch it last week back then. Of course, it's all streaming now, so it's different. But and I think you miss a little of that. I mean, that's why I enjoyed with Picard, for instance. Oops, thanks for that, cat. Sorry, I just gone. I'm telling you guys, like you can see, but the cat just stepped on the keyboard and just put me into full screen. Apparently, this will take full screen off, or is it F11? It might be an F11. But yeah, oops, oh God. It's all going wrong. Hang on, F11. Does that work? There we go.
Right.
That's better. No, I don't want this PC. I want to get.
I'll take your word for it because nothing changed at my end.
Hang on. Maybe F11 on its own. Yes, there we go. That's better. Live! Not actually, but feels like it. I might not cut this bit out though. Animals. What were we saying?
We're talking about. You're saying about why you enjoy Picard. Moving on from the Doctor.
Because on streaming it was like one episode every week. I remember all the feedback on the social medias. People like, "Oh, I can't wait! Ooh." It's like, no, this is fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice. Like, ooh, can't wait till next week. You know, it's kind of nice and fun to do.
The anticipation, like we with
Yeah.
the Mandalorian or whatever as well, just same sort of thing. And then you get some people who go, "Oh, I'm waiting for I'm waiting till it's all out, and then I can just binge the whole lot." Like, well, all right, but that's
See,
I
I
don't
don't
know,
know. With
denying
Mandalorian,
yourself pleasure there. I think.
I'm not sure because I've watched all 3 seasons,
Yeah.
and I find I watched this last one week by week. Well, I sometimes missed it because I find Mandalorian very slow, very
Right.
not ponderous, but just not even meanders. It's just it's got no rush to get to where it's going. So we'll get
Yeah.
there. Don't worry, we'll get there in a few weeks. Just chill, man. Just come chill with us a bit. You know, a little bit of action, but mostly just chill a bit. And I do wonder if it might be one of those series that is designed to be watched in like a couple of days. You know, I don't know. Because it does
Hmm.
feel, and that's true of a lot of streaming shows, you know, even though
I
they're
found
released
I found
weekly.
Andor ponderous like that.
I haven't
That's
got
the
past
only one I
episode
haven't
one.
really taken to.
Yeah, I haven't got past episode one still.
Yeah.
And the
I
same as with the new Secret Invasion MCU story as well.
Right.
That was
Okay.
just, I'm like, ugh, I'll get to it. But I got to episode one, I'm like, I have no inclination to carry on. And I think that's fundamental flaw in anything, any
Yeah.
kind of consumable media. But yeah, so I kind of like that I've got to wait for episode 2 of this story, even though I know what's going to happen. It's kind of weird watching it without just going straight into it. I may be
Yeah.
better for it, actually. It may actually
I
work
think
better as a result.
if I'd sat down of an evening and watched that, then potentially I may have been inclined to have carried on.
Yeah, well, would the end
Um,
of this episode made you think, oh, because I know you watch it and you're like, oh, ooh,
yeah,
this isn't good. So
this is shaking things up a
it's
bit.
like, oh,
So
so yeah. Would it make you
yeah,
want to watch the next one straight away?
it's.
I'm allowing.
I think it probably would.
Mm.
But I do like the fact that because we've got this
I nearly
set
gave something away for next week then.
because we've got this set up, and it's nice to know. Actually, no, I'm not going to bend the rules. I'm not going to
Mm.
break the rules. We're going to do this, you know, as as we've agreed. So I will leave it until then to.
Okay, I do have one question for you, which is not directly connected to this episode, but definitely this season. There's a story coming up. Actually, 2 questions. One, there is a story coming up in the latter
Yeah.
half of the season. Oh, actually, 3 questions. Because this season, now I'm thinking about it, there's quite a lot of threads with other Trek. There is, for instance, one episode coming up, and it's all in the latter half of the season. There's one episode coming up. It's not a sequel to classic Trek, but it does feature characters from the original series.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily leads, but characters played by the
Mm-hmm.
same actors.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, I'm on 2 minds of would it benefit you to watch those episodes of TOS beforehand so you know who these characters are, or will it work without? So
Okay.
I don't know if it's up to you what you want to go with this, or do you want to watch them after?
Is the original series available for
Yes, on Netflix as well.
streaming? Okay. I don't mind watching a bit of original series now and again.
The advantage
So
of it,
do it as a bit of homework in the week leading up to it.
and the advantage of it is one of those 3 episodes. There's a direct sequel to one of those episodes in season 5 of DS9.
Right, okay.
Because it's an episode, it's basically the 25th anniversary of Star Trek, I think, or 30th or whatever.
Yeah.
And essentially, without not giving the plot away, but the crew of DS9 actually go back into that episode.
Oh, is that the Tribbles one?
Ah, yes, of course. I think you mentioned you said that.
I've seen that.
But you haven't seen the original TOS episode?
No, I have. Yes, I have.
Okay, so you may not need to do that because you then may. But I don't know if you'd still recognize the
not for
character.
years. I mean, we're talking donkey's years, so it's probably worth me going.
So you know who these characters are when they turn up.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's another one, again, latter half, which is a direct sequel to a TOS episode.
Right.
And I'm wondering, again, how would it work or would it not work? Or would it maybe watch the DS9 and then think, oh, I'm curious to know more, possibly, and then you watch it afterwards?
Okay.
Maybe. But we'll get there and we'll discuss that. But there's also another couple of episodes this latest half, which does have, because this is the final year of Next Gen, which have episodes which do cross over with Next Gen.
Okay.
With supporting cast, not main cast, but there's a narrative thread that goes from Next Gen to DS9 to Next Gen to DS9. So I'm wondering, do we watch those Next Gen episodes as part of the story? Because that'll be different.
Yeah.
No. What do you reckon?
I reckon so. Yeah. I can. I can probably squeeze an episode or two in now and again in the week leading up to it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll squeeze. Yeah, just to get context, then we can discuss. That way, when we get to this particular story in DS9, we can discuss the episode that led into it on Next Gen because you've seen it. So we can discuss it as part of the discussion of the story. Because
although I'm watching these as essentially like a cold viewer, if there's no point in unnecessarily hamstringing myself. I think
the DS9 episode will explain itself well enough.
Yeah.
But again, if you've got it already in your head, it'll just give you that extra bit of, okay, I know what this is.
Cool.
And a bit of Next Gen's never a bad thing. Well, depends on the
well, you say that.
I do say that. It's never a bad thing for me because I think DS9 TNG is great. It's my comfort track. Anything more to say about this episode, Tim? Do you think? Because mostly it's been praise. We haven't got a negative.
Yeah, it has. It was very good, and I'm really looking forward to the next episode. I haven't got a clue where it's all going. All I do know is I'm pretty certain that Kira
mentioned
not going to disappear, or if she is going to disappear, it won't be for very long, and then she'll be back. So,
they've definitely sacked her. Nowadays, that might happen. Back then, that didn't really happen so much. And besides, who's going to sack Nana? I mean, why would you do that? Why would, if you've got an opportunity to have her in your show, you do not get rid of her?
No.
Unless you're Torchwood, in which case you blow her up.
Yeah.
Which was like, why would you bring her in for one episode and blow her up at the end of it?
I only noticed the other day that she was, because I don't recall her specifically in Miracle Day, and Miracle Day I thought was just so bloody awful. I've not. It's one bit of kind of the Hooniverse, as it were, that I've just not gone back to revisit. I would not put myself through that again.
But you obviously know that she played a character in it. She was basically the daughter. She's basically the daughter of that lover that Jack had in the past.
Right.
Remember
Remember
they find him. He's on his bed, and they've got all that weird stuff underneath it. And she's basically the daughter that meets Jack at the cliff and then takes him to.
But I only found that out quite really within the last week or so. Actually, I noticed. It came up on social media, and there was a post mentioning that episode of Miracle Day, and then mentioning Nana, and so it was only then that I made the connection.
So if you ever do rewatch it, because it happened, then you'll be like, brilliant! This episode's brilliant. This episode, I like this episode. Oh, it's over. It's like also, I don't know if you remember, but John Delancey was in there.
I do remember John Delancey being in it, yes, because I remember
his last line was, fuck, boom. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, man. I'll do this. And the whole terrorist circle, background story plot thingy.
Yeah.
Because that's just keeps getting mentioned. It's not really played a big part of this story yet.
No, but it's that was introduced right back at the beginning, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I
And
kind
then
of
he got stamped on the head.
accepted that
Yeah.
as part of kind of Kira's background, as part of her character build up, as it were. So
but this group that's basically are very anti-Federation.
Oh yeah, with the
because you remember a couple episodes ago we was talking and you're like, oh yeah, so it's like the Circle. You was obviously talking about the Circle of the story, and I was like, oh, the Circle. Remember that?
Yeah,
and that's why.
Yeah, because they etched it into Odo as well, didn't
Quark.
they? So, Quark
into Quark. They branded me. Well, what are you going to do about it?
Well, etch anything into Odo.
Yes, so obviously that's going to play out because episode 2 of this story, because it's not a part 1 and part 2, because they don't really do that.
No.
DS9 very rarely within multi-part stories have like a part 1, part 2 title.
Right.
They usually have separate titles. And this is obviously a case because the next episode is called, ready for this?
I'm ready for it.
The Circle.
So the because what I was going to say is I'm assuming because there was no resolution to that.
Yeah. So the background plot becomes the A plot.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's
because it also makes sense with leaving Quark with it branded.
Yeah. It's going somewhere. It's not just a random. By the way, this shit's happening.
Yeah.
I don't know if you did notice on social media when I was posting today on Instagram and whatnot. I did mention that there's a shadow lurking in.
No.
Well, I've mentioned that
any social media today at all. So
you neophyte.
I've been busy. I've had to do the food shopping and the laundry and sort the kids out.
We done?
I'm done. Yeah, no, I'm done. No, carry on. Yeah, carry on.
Sorry. What was I saying? Social media.
Social media. You've been all over social media circling.
Yes. I was saying that something's looming. There's a shadow coming, and I'm going to be interested to see if you can work it out as it's happening. Because it's very subtle. Right. So just have that in the back of your head. This season's going somewhere. Which season 1 kind of was, but this one's a bit more directed. Although on first watching, most people didn't notice it, which is quite clever. Because then, of course, you rewatch, you're like, oh, was that far back? Bloody hell! So,
okay.
I know it's coming cold, but it's fun to have something lingering in the back of your head sometimes as well.
I shall keep my eyes open.
Keep your eyes open and your mind mindful. I guess. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. All right. Well, as usual, people, you can find us on the social medias. You can find Tim on the X as Mr._Brell.
That's right.
Yes. You can find us Replimat there, which we are, I think we're literally the _Replimat. Sounds about right, doesn't it?
It does. Let me have a look.
You think we know these things?
We are at
Replimat what? Sorry, go on.
We are at Replimat 1.
That's right. We are correct. We're also on Instagrams. I am, of course, just andyfrankhamallen on Instagram. Tim is, again, Mr. Brell. No underscore?
No underscore this time.
Okay. And the Replimat is there under Replimat _DS9. And you can find us both on Threads under, of course, Mr. Brell. You're seeing a pattern here. And I am, Andy Frankhamallen again, because
perhaps I should remove my underscore from
everything. Yeah,
X.
Just Mr. Brell.
Yeah,
Mr. Brell. And and obviously on YouTube, because this is where you'll be watching it, unless you are watching it via Facebook link or something. But yeah, so we'll be back next week for the Circle. And I believe that's pretty much it. So
I think it's probably more than enough, to be honest.
All right then, fine. I'll shut up then. For now. but I will not promise to
Oh, yes,
return again. Anyway, until then, goodbye from me.
And goodbye from... No, I can't say goodbye from him. That's someone else's catchphrase.
Yes.
Goodbye from me also.
Goodbye from you also. Bye-bye, Duggan!